So about 2 weeks ago, I replaced my timing belt as well as my water pump. To do so, I had to drain my entire cooling system. I also replaced the thermostat at the same time because the cooling system was drained, so I figured it'd be a good time to do so. I started having overheating issues ever since. I figured, it could just be air in the system, so I've tried several times, several methods to bleed the air out of the system, but I've had no luck. So it could be that I'm just very bad at bleeding the air, but the replacement thermostat that I purchased did not have a jiggle pin like the old thermostat, so that could honestly be the issue. This is the old thermostat here. So I'm actually going to try to put the old thermostat back in and see if that fixes my problem. So on the bottom of the radiator on this end here, there's the drain plug. I'm going to drain about a gallon if I can, and just hopefully bring the coolant level below where the thermostat is. So I remove the hosing that goes to the thermostat housing. I didn't have any leakage when I removed that. After removing that hose, you need to remove this little vacuum line here connected to that vacuum servo. And then there's just three 10mm bolts holding on the thermostat housing. So now I got the housing off, I'm going to pull out the thermostat. So it looks like there was a little bit more coolant left in there above where the thermostat sits. So I went and got a funnel, put it under there to try to catch some as it came out when I pulled out the thermostat. But so here we can just get another look at the new thermostat that I used to replace it. As you can see, it doesn't have any notch or bleed valve or bleed jiggle pin or anything cut into it. So that could be the whole reason I can't get the air out of my system and my car is overheating. After replacing the thermostat, or rather replacing the new thermostat with the old thermostat again, I began the filling slash bleeding process. This is the same process I've been doing, up until this point. So just open the reservoir and start filling up with coolant. This first gallon is just the gallon that I drained out of the car earlier to get the coolant level a little bit lower than the thermostat housing. Now, while I did lose a fair amount of coolant on the ground from, the draining process, um, the vehicle I felt was taking more coolant than it took before, and that already was a good sign to me. At this point, I made sure that the bleed valve that sits on top of the thermostat housing was open so that any air could escape. Spilled just a little bit of coolant on the exhaust there. I periodically went into the car to check the cluster, check if the car was overheating. Wouldn't want to run the car if it was overheating. That would be a sure sign that I was doing something wrong. At this point, I topped off the reservoir as much as I could and capped it up. Just due to the way it's kind of put into the car, it's almost angled down. So now the best way for me to bleed air out of the system is going to be by using the bleed valve provided, as well as the actual mounting point for the coolant level sensor. I would unscrew that periodically and let out a little bit of air. I ran the car for about 45 minutes. After about 30 minutes, I turned the heater off to see if the reduced radiation of heat would make the car overheat, and it did not. The car stayed about where you see the temperature sensor there now. After doing all this, I've driven the car all over the place on the highway, for 30 minutes to hour drives, and I have not had any issues with overheating. My heater is getting good strong heat as well. So I really think that was just this thermostat that was my entire issue this whole time. And I'm not terrible at bleeding coolant systems after all.